Nothing like starting the show with a little bit of news. Welcome to NFL Power Rankings. It is presented by Energizer. Mike Am, Eric Edholm with you. If you're watching us, scan the QR code. All of Eric's rankings on NFL.com. And Eric made reference to the news. First coaching change that we have in the NFL. Robert Salah being relieved of his duties with the Jets. I got to imagine when there's a change like this that affects how you view a team like Gang Green.
Absolutely. I mean, I moved him down 5 spots this week, so obviously the hit in London that they took had an effect, but we may have to see how this works out. They're heading into this massive game against the Bills on Monday night that takes on an even bigger meeting now. Jeff Ulbrich taking over. Can he fix this issue inside? Really, the problems are on offense, so we'll have to see. We've got some quarterback situations that are worth monitoring around the league, so a little seismic activity could have all these rankings in flux pretty quickly.
Yeah, and once again, we'll talk more about the Jets coming up a little bit later here on Power Rankings. You mentioned the international game against the Vikings. No change at the top at the number 1 spot as we get you teams 1 through 8. Yes, the Vikings sitting in that top spot. No change there. The Kansas City Chiefs victorious. 5-0 on the season. Got it done against the Saints on Monday Night Football. The Lions, idle, so those are your top 3 teams. We saw the Texans with the dramatic win over the Bills, overcame 2 C.J. Stroud turnovers, therefore the Ravens, what a big-time game against Cincinnati at 5. The Commanders, 5 weeks down, they're 4-1, exactly how we all thought it was going to play out. And at 7, it's the Bills with Josh Allen. 9 of 30 pass attempts completed, which is just an odd number. And the Packers, they're sitting at number 8 after dealing with the Rams, who are in a free fall right now. But let's start with the number 1 team here. Look, I think what we're seeing defensively, I know all the talk is going to be about Sam Darnold, and rightfully so. But Eric, this team's defense is real.
Absolutely, and I think that obviously staked in the lead with the Van Ginkel pick 6. We're so not used to seeing Aaron Rodgers make plays like that, but credit the Brian Flores and that Vikings defense, and Stephon Gilmore shut the door late. They had a few shaky moments in there, but they held on, and it was really a 3-phase victory, right? The offense contributed a little, not as much from Sam Darnold as we've seen recently, but Will Riker 3 field goals, good special teams play overall. And the big plays on defense really put them apart. I can see this debate with the Chiefs, the Vikings, the 2 undefeated teams. They're both at bye. It's not going to change this week, but a lot of people out there wondering who is the best team in this league, and it's tough. You can see elements of each that make them appealing, and also a few weaknesses here and there.
Well, a week ago when you had the Vikings sitting at number 1 and you dropped the Chiefs to 2, there was concerns about Rashee Rice. And yeah, you still have them as the number 2 team. I actually thought, coming off of the Monday night postgame show on NFL Network, I'd walk into the studio with you today and thought there might be a flip-flop because there was a balanced attack and that defense balled out. And once again, another win as they stay perfect on the season.
And another team with a great defense. I think that's going to be the formula for both these teams. Yes, the quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, can get it done. Yes, Travis Kelce turned back the clock and, had that pitch play and 9 catches, a good block or 2 as well. But you look at this Brian Cook interception, really kind of set the tone. It's supposed to be a throwaway, but a nice play nonetheless. And, took Chris Olave out of the game, took Alvin Kamara out of the game, knocked Derek Carr out of the game late with an oblique injury. So, that Chiefs defense, when the offense isn't perfect, yes, they rang up a lot of yards, but 2 for 7 in the red zone isn't really getting it done, at least not to the Chiefs standard, then the defense is going to take care of business. So again, another 3-phase operation here in Kansas City, and that's a big reason why both of these teams, the Vikings and the Chiefs, are unbeaten headed into their bye.
Yeah, and Kareem Hunt goes over 100 yards. Juju Smith-Schuster balls out in a game where he's got, I think, 130 yards receiving. So once again, Kansas City, we could talk about injuries. The defense balls out, and it just feels like Andy Reid will figure it out on the offensive side. Meanwhile, it is time to get to Future Champions. It is presented by FanDuel. As you look at the odds right now in the AFC South and some of the numbers that ring true to us. And Eric, I want to get your take on this Texans team. Fortunate to get a win when you don't play your best. Stephon Diggs admitted, hey, this one meant a lot. It was against the Buffalo Bills squad. But as you can see, according to FanDuel, Texans, Colts, Jags, and Titans are the order in that division in terms of a finish here. How fortunate were the Texans to get this victory?
Yeah, obviously it came to anyone who watched the end of that game, saw how it came down to that final possession for the Bills and what they decided to do with the ball and not do with the ball, which is maybe force some timeouts, run the football, etc. So obviously it sort of became a toss-up game. The Texans looked like the better club early. CJ Stroud did have some mistakes late. The defense obviously let Josh Allen and that offense move it a little bit after, kind of stopping him most of the game. But and I would like to see this Texans team play better in second halves. They're being outscored right now 67-40. That's enough of a number at this point in the season where you say, hey, even if they start strong, I'd like to see 4 quarters from them. They couldn't put a few other teams away early in the season. So, yeah, they're quibbles. They're 4-1. Obviously, they've beaten some good teams along the way. But this is something that's going to be a little bit more of a test when they face a little stronger competition on the level of what we saw against Buffalo.
Hey, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on Buffalo, who you have as 7th. Are you concerned about that squad?
Sure. No, obviously the last 2 games have kind of undercut what we saw from about the second quarter on in week 1 up to that point. So, yeah, we're constantly reevaluating here at the Power Rankings Laboratory, doing what we can to balance the good, the bad, the otherwise. And so, look, last season we saw Josh Allen on this offense go through some slumps. This one may not be as prolonged. We'll see. But, anytime they go through one of these streaks where they make it a lot harder on themselves, you have your worries.
Yeah, Eric, I do game day preview on Sunday mornings. I sit with Steve Weich and Cynthia Freeland, and we all pick the Ravens, who you have number 5, as a winner against Cincinnati. It played out that way, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hedging just a little bit because of the desperate situation that the Bengals are in. I think the way the Ravens won this game is a huge positive sign. We were questioning them, kind of putting the hammer down. They had to come back and win this game. They had to overcome, one of those moments that Lamar Jackson, I'm sure, was cringing about and still probably thinking about. This is a good win for him.
Absolutely. You faced 3 different 10-point deficits in the second half of a game on the road. And look, you can look at the Bengals record and write them off if you want to. But clearly, they are scoring at a pretty high pace and throwing the football very well. Did a lot for Sunday as well. And, the Ravens found a way. It was great to see Justin Tucker back in the long-range kicking department. Obviously a stalwart for many years, but had almost become a liability beyond 50 yards going back to last season. Big 56-yarder to tie it, the game winner in overtime. Classic Ravens win, too. You can't shut Derrick Henry down the whole game. He finally got one there at the end. So impressive on a lot of fronts, even with some hiccups along the way.
And by the way, I think you have the toughest job in the building ranking some of these teams. I will push back a little bit later on the show on where you have Cincinnati, because the Bengals, to me, I get why you dropped them where you did, but I think they're better than a few of the teams that you have in front of them. So we'll have that conversation coming up in just a bit. The Commanders at 6. Be honest with me, when you're assessing the teams before the season, no way in hell you thought they'd be anywhere close to the 6th overall ranking at any point during the season, right?
I tried to talk myself into them almost cracking the top 20. I had them around 22, 23, and I thought that's pushing it a little bit, right? So I backed them off to 25 or 6 or whatever it was. And what was funny is that I had Washington media members coming to me and say, hey, this is the most positive review we've seen this whole year. So I may not have been onto it, but I was a little bit onto it, I think.
Yeah, no, I will take it. You point to Jaden Daniels as obviously the singular reason why they're there, or there's a culture shift, right? Dan Quinn is there. Defense has played some pretty good games down the stretch. I know all the attention goes to Jaden, but it feels like more than just him.
Austin Eckler reborn, Brian Robinson's showing some juice. The defense has been pretty good 3 of the last 4 games. So Daniels was a little off early, so everybody else kind of held him up, and then he obviously delivered late and ended up with 320 yards passing and rushing combined. So yeah, this is a Dan Quinn special. Adam Peters, the new GM, the new ownership as well. It feels like a new dawn and a new day, and the roster was almost completely overhauled in the offseason. You're seeing the results of that. I didn't think it would happen this quickly, but it's been very impressive and hard not to tip your hat at the change of direction.
Yeah, I'm with you there 100%. By the way, they beat the Browns. I'm stomping on the panic button. We'll talk about Cleveland and tell you where they're ranked a little bit later. But there's more to come here on Power Rankings. Had some late game heroics from Captain Kirk. What did that do to their rankings for the Falcons, and where did the loss leave the Bucs? The answer is coming up next on NFL Power Rankings. Back here on Power Rankings as we look at teams 9 through 16. And once again, the full rankings. You can scan the QR code if you're watching, or if you're listening on NFL.com, you can head there. The Tampa Bay Bucks sitting at number 9. A little surprised to see them here. The Steelers, despite a loss at home to Dallas, they are number 10. Eagles sit at 11. The Falcons, Captain Kirk and company, now at 12. We'll talk more about them in just a moment. At 13, it's the Cowboys. And yeah, Dak delivered 352 passing yards in a victory. Don't look now. Bo Nix fired up 3 straight wins, and the Broncos are the 14th ranked team. 2 consecutive losses now for Seattle, who dropped to 15, and the Saints at 16. Another loss for them. It's 3 straight losses after losing in Kansas City on Monday night. All right, the Bucks. I don't think this is easy trying to navigate some of these rankings here. I'd asked you off air if you thought about dropping them outside of the top 10, but I don't know how you could have, considering the team sitting right behind them.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could easily put Pittsburgh there, but then, are you moving them up, right? Obviously Atlanta gets the big win, but I already jumped them pretty significantly too. I understand if you're a Falcons fan and mad that the Bucks are ahead of them, but, for 3.5 quarters, they did outplay Atlanta. And so I look at Baker Mayfield. Could they have finished better? Absolutely. In the first half, things look really good. The injuries have piled up, but they are going to get healthier. I think some of these injured players will be coming back soon. And I think if this game was played again tomorrow on a neutral field, Tampa's the better team. But you're right. It is so tough from about 9 to 22. I don't think there's a giant separation, Mike, between these teams.
Yeah, I'm with you there 100%. By the way, the Tampa Bay Bucks already en route to New Orleans for a matchup against the Saints. Keep in mind, and I know we're having this conversation way too many times here in a very short period of time with the hurricane squarely in Tampa Bay's path right now. So thoughts and prayers, obviously, to everyone in the state of Florida with the hurricane that is fast approaching. Meanwhile, it is time for Power Moves presented by Energizer. Made reference to the Falcons, 7 spots on the move up. Kirk Cousins, I got to tell you, he's got you at the edge of your seat. The Falcons are playing in these close games, and not for nothing, Eric, every time he goes out there, I go, they got a real chance to win this game.
They do, right? Obviously the Falcons have had plenty of mistakes along the way this season, including Monday night. They had 6 penalties in the plus territory on offense. So, even though this guy threw for 509 yards, he was getting a lot of things thrown in his face that kept setting them back, plays called back, long downs and distances. And so, it was very impressive to see him work the ball around. They got it to the tight end. They got it to the receiver. They threw it to the running backs as well. Everyone stepped up when they had to make a play, even if there were some landmines along the way. I mean, look, Atlanta's got to play better defense. I think they know they probably got lucky in this one, but it was a significant move up, mainly because of how they finished and how a lot of the other teams in that part of the last week's power rankings did, which is not as well.
Yeah, look, I think the mantra of this team is, and I think you hit the nail on the head, got to play some better defense here. But more specifically, this is an offensive-minded team, and as the weeks unfold here, and as Kirk is getting more and more reps with some of these guys, this offense looks like it is rolling. Another team that was a dramatic mover in the right direction, up 4 spots, the Dallas Cowboys. I'm almost at the point where I'm willing to say this. Just play all your games on the road here. They just look like a better road team than they are a home team.
That is true so far, right? And yet, when they were leading 13-10, I was not sure the Dallas Cowboys were going to win this game. Sure enough, Pittsburgh gets the ball back. They go down and score, and I thought, that's that, okay? Give Mike McCarthy credit. He takes a lot of guff from a lot of different people, including Cowboys fans. His last drive, the play calling there, I thought was spectacular. Obviously, Brian Schottenheimer, a big part of that as well, but kept the Steelers off balance. Second big drive of the fourth quarter. They had to have it. This play to Lipke right here was absolutely huge for them. Things got a little dicey there at the end. Almost coughed it up on this ball right there with an amazing fumble punch out by Landon Roberts. But Dak falls on it. 4th down, little mesh concept. Just throw it open. And that is a great play to earn your 3rd victory of the season. Never easy for the Cowboys, right? They certainly have their way of making the degree of difficulty higher, but they pulled it out when they had to. Well after midnight, a lot of us were feeling it the next day, but the Cowboys had to feel pretty good.
Yeah, West Coast, best coast when it comes to watching games when they are delayed. I got to tell you, it wasn't too late. Just one other note here from a Dallas perspective. 2 drives in the fourth quarter of at least 15 plays. A 15-play drive and a 16-play drive. That is big boy football from the Dallas Cowboys, and it's a reason why they moved up those 4 spots. Broncos, I got to tell you, this is looking better than I thought. I love the exchange that we saw on the sideline. Bo Nix getting a little fired up with his coach. I'll take that after you pick up another victory.
felt a little different than the chats between Peyton and Russell Wilson last year, didn't it? Right. And this is a rookie. Now, he's played a lot of college football, 2 different programs, won a lot of games and all that. But when you step into the NFL in your 5th game, you're not afraid to go toe to toe with Sean Payton, who can be a tough guy to deal with sometimes, very demanding. Shows me a lot, right? He didn't have a pristine game Sunday, but I thought he played pretty well. And I suspect Peyton is given a little tough love here. And when you have a defense that can do what the Broncos have done, Pat Surtain had a great game, ran back the interception 100 yards, kind of got the ball rolling a little after a slow start. This is a good football team, too. We talked about teams like the Chiefs and the Vikings at the top. Broncos kind of have a similar formula, decent offense, very good defense. Special teams are pretty solid as well. So there's a formula there that could get them much higher on this list.
Yeah, Peyton in the press conference was obviously asked about the exchange because you have to ask. And he said, Bill's got a little Ferris Bueller in him and he's trying to get that out of him. I got to be honest with you. I think I know what that means. I'm not 100% sure. But the point is, when they're on the sideline and Bo's fired up, I do legitimately love it. I don't think there was disrespect that was there. It's like, hey, I'm getting confident here because I don't think Bo does that in week 1 or in the preseason. I think he's now starting to feel himself in a very good way, and the Broncos, this is paying dividends for them. Still more to come here, Bill, on NFL Power Rankings. There's 2 teams that they got to be hitting the panic button, the Niners and the Bengals. Where do they sit in the rankings? The answer is coming up next. Back here on NFL Power Rankings, presented by Energizer. Team 17 through 24 for Eric at number 17, Caleb Williams, arrow pointing up on this Bears squad. At 18, the Niners. Yeah, I'm a little concerned on this squad. Sitting at 19, it's the Chargers. The Jets are at 20. 3 interceptions for Aaron Rodgers means Robert Saleh is no longer the head football coach. We'll talk more about gangrene in just a moment. The Colts, it is going to be Anthony Richardson when he's healthy enough to play, not Joe Flacco, but Joe. The offense kind of looks better with him. They fall short against the Jags. At 22, the Cardinals. Second half shutout against the Niners. Hello, Arizona. 23, it's the G-Men. No Neighbors, no Singletary, no problem. And at 24, the Bengals. I know it's a loss. Damn, Eric got them sitting at 24. We'll circle up on Cincinnati in just a moment. But the Bears, I got to tell you, there was concerns about Caleb Williams. Jaden Daniels is balling out. This dude is playing efficient football at the quarterback spot. They figured out a way, got to run this football. And right now, I think the Bears are starting to become a little bit more of a threat.
Still got to work on those opening drives. Those haven't really hummed yet this season. But after a pretty bad opening drive, almost threw a pick 6, he really looked settled in. He didn't look panicky or jittered or frustrated what was happening on the field. It was much better body language, if you buy into that stuff, than I think we'd seen before, and much better physical execution here. A great throw to a wide open DJ Moore. Found his receivers, didn't force the ball too. I mean, when the shots were there, he took them, and much more accurate downfield. You add that to that, a Bears defense that I think is pretty darn good. Now look, all this happened against Carolina. Their defense isn't so hot right now, but we've seen obviously what this Bears defense can do to make up for when the offense was struggling. Now that Williams has settled in, I like them much better as a team. He's gonna have his bad games too, but hard not to be encouraged by, I would say, the last 7 quarters going back to the Rams game, where he's looked a lot more complete of a quarterback and less frantic.
Well, they get the Jags in London, a Jags team that finally figured out a way to get a win. 9:30 Eastern time exclusively on NFL Network. At 18, it's the San Francisco 49ers. I got to tell you, I can story some of the losses for me. Sometimes it's, just the health of these guys not out there. I don't know what the deal is. I'm actually legitimately worried about the Niners.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of a thing with Jake Moody being hurt in the second half there. Changed their strategy. They had to go for it on a 4th and 23 within field goal range. But that was notwithstanding, they have some issues right now. Obviously, ball security is a problem. You saw in this, Jordan Mason putting it on the ground late kind of opened the door for the Cardinals to win it. But they weren't able to finish a drive in the second half, and that's a problem. This is a team that's built to score. Brandon Ayuk was having a big game at that point. Brock Purdy looked pretty solid in the first half. You're up 13 at home against a team that you'd beaten pretty soundly in that building 2 years in a row. That's got me worried as well. And, look, I will say they did lose 3 straight last year, completely undoing what the start of the season had them doing. Still ended up in the Super Bowl. I can't quit them completely. but I get why your concerns are high right now, because they're multiple. They're adding up, and this team looks a shell of what it used to look like.
Yeah, and they're matching up against a desperate Seattle team in Seattle on a short week
Yes.
on TNF. So something's got to give here. The Niners once again dropping 6 spots, dropping 5 spots, and it meant a coaching change with Robert Saleh now being dismissed as the Jets head coach. What's the fix right now, the short-term fix for this season as the Jets right now figure out new ways to lose football games?
Yeah, I mean, getting Devontae Adams wouldn't hurt, right? I wonder if those plans are still on the table, though, right? I don't know if these are separate, if they're, firing Salah had nothing to do with what trades they might make and all that. But clearly, adding another offensive weapon would not be a bad thing. We saw it during parts of this game, second, third, even the fourth quarter for stretches. Aaron can move the ball a little bit, but finishing drives, another red zone weapon, somebody who can draw attention away from Wilson, excuse me. But also getting this run game involved early. I mean, you fall into a double-digit hole. Braylon Allen and Breece Hall aren't going to get as many carries. They both had a tough game Sunday. That's 2 weeks in a row where Hall's been a little missing. So that offensive line has not been as good as it was in the early going. That's got to be fixed. A lot going on. The defense is okay. Yeah. That really wasn't the issue, which is obviously curious when you fire a defensive-minded head coach. But things just weren't clicking.
Not at all. And they get the Buffalo Bills, who need a win. That game on Monday night, which will be a very intriguing matchup. We'll have the postgame and the pregame show on NFL Network for you. Cincinnati at 24. I get it. They score 38 points. It goes overtime. And they shouldn't have lost that football game. Let's just call a spade here. I think they lost to the Ravens. They lost to the Chiefs. I think they're better than this ranking that you gave them.
Yeah, I mean, like I always say, at some point you are what your record is, and it's hard not to, ignore the results, right? I mean, Burrow is on pace right now for a 4,500-yard, 40 touchdown, 7 interception season. He's been pretty terrific, at least since week 1 anyway. And yet this defense has not been able to stop people consistently. Played pretty well on that side of the ball, all things considered in the first half, but second half and overtime weren't able to get those stops. We mentioned how Baltimore came back from 3 different 10-point deficits, and then this might have been the play of the year. Look, sometimes you face a Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson, and they just beat you with a couple extra plays. So the spot on the power rankings reflects their record and how they've lost to good teams, like you said, the Commanders as well. But they just can't find a way to close things out.
Yeah, I got to tell you, and just as an example, the Jets, I think Cincinnati's a better team than Gang Green. And 2 teams.
I put them ahead of your Jets. I thought your Giants.
No.
I mean, I thought maybe I'd get some credit for that.
By the way, my G-men figuring out a way to get it done.
That
opening drive, I'm like, oh my God, this is the season in a microcosm of the season, and it wasn't pretty, but they figured out a way to get it done. Let's get you teams 25 through 32. The Raiders, Minshew gets pulled. We see O'Connell. They sit at 25. We know Devontae's going to get traded. The Titans at 26. The Rams, how about this squad? Worst start to a season in Sean McVay's coaching career. The Dolphins are at 28. Found a way to get it done against the Patriots. The Jags, they get a win. They're at 29. At number 30, this is rough to watch, this Browns squad. The Patriots are 31. They're also, at times, a little difficult to watch, especially on the offensive side, and the Carolina Panthers at 32. There's some teams here that there's a reason why they're at the bottom. I think maybe the biggest surprise, considering what I thought they could be, the Cleveland Browns. Explain to me what is going on for this squad.
It's not fair to put everything on Deshaun Watson's head, but obviously he has been a big part of this problem. Considering what they paid, $220 million, considering a full offseason of health and work in the program, the fact that he wasn't able to really play as much in the preseason may have some effect, but I just cannot believe that how far he's regressed as a player. He and Stefanski maybe have never been a great stylistic match anyway, football-wise. The offensive line injuries, the running back injuries, and that defense too. Let's call them out. They have not been as dominant as they were a year ago.
I'm with you in a big way, because defensively there has been some struggles for this squad. Yep. Hey, before we wrap up here, the Jags, and I made reference to it getting a win, they're playing like the home away from home game in London.
Yep.
Are we going to see this again? They're going to beat the Bears?
Hey, they could. I think they have a little bit of momentum, but got to finish it off better than they did against the Colts.
Catch the game, 9:30 Eastern time on NFL Network. Eric, you're the best man. We'll do it again next week.